everyone.
Hi, y'all.
Welcome to Shaken and Disturbed. I'm Daryn Carp, Mother God here. Excuse me, Father God here with Mother God,
You do
John
that
Thrasher.
every week.
I do it every week.
Oh,
But here's why this week is okay that I make this excuse because literally John and I just found breaking news. By Sunday, I'm sure we're going to know a lot
Yeah.
more, but with just breaking news that Liam
Ugh.
Payne from One Direction, 31-year-old, was found dead in Buenos Aires after a fall, jump, we don't know, something on a wooden
Yeah.
terrace at his hotel from 3 floors up. And so John just got this breaking news report. We were kind of reacting to it. Obviously, super sad, just regardless of what happened. People are going to make their speculations. There's a lot of stuff going
Yeah.
around about his ex fiance, things that he was into, erratic behavior. I'm not comfortable saying yet what
Yeah.
happened because I don't know enough, but just that like that's also why I keep screwing up the intro. The other weeks are just there's no
No,
excuse.
I
But
know.
this
It's
week I
yeah.
have an excuse, John Thrasher.
No, you
How do you
do. Yeah.
yeah.
We were just in between episodes, full disclosure. We were recording NMR, and then I got a notification from a friend. I'm a huge One Direction fan. I've seen them in concert. Liam was a great. I loved his solo music. He was only 31. I mean, it's crazy. I don't want to speculate either, but Daryn, if you don't mind me mentioning, you were kind of saying it was from a third floor balcony, and it just
Yeah,
seems like you'd have to either land the wrong way or
right.
TMZ was reporting on some kind of erratic behavior in the hotel lobby before this happened. So it's a little sus, to be honest, right now, but I'm just completely shocked. And unfortunately, today's episode, by complete coincidence, is about
Also an
another
entertainer.
celebrity,
Yeah,
yeah,
another
that died.
entertainer and celebrity. So it's something in
And I've
Hollywood.
sorry. Yeah,
No,
I
I
was
was
just
just gonna
saying
say. Yeah.
we're both like just kind of like reacting here, but I'll just say I there haven't really been a lot of celebrity deaths that I've been like, oh my God, about. Like, of course, there's the Michael Jacksons, the Whitney Houstons,
True.
those people that everyone reacts to. But this is one that I was like, oh my God, like it's just he's so young, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just so heartbroken for him and for
I
his
remember
family.
when Whitney Houston won, and obviously that was a big one. But I think the one that like got me the most, and like
Yeah.
we're like comparing shocks. I mean, this one was very
No, of
shocking
course,
because
but
I like
yeah,
truly had no idea. We're reacting to it in real time. But I think the one that I just remember being most shocked by,
yeah.
um, either Brittany Murphy or Robin
Uh,
Williams.
Robin was really tough. I forgot about
You
that
know,
one.
especially just the way that he died and just like the
Yeah.
juxtaposition of what he presented and
Yeah.
what was going on behind closed doors. So just goes to
Yeah.
show you never really know.
Yeah.
And obviously, like we want to be respectful at this time. So we're gonna have more. I'm sure next time we record, there's at least going to be some type of report. This
Yeah.
is obviously breaking
Well,
news. So yeah,
sorry to interrupt you there.
at
I
this
just
time,
hope,
yeah.
yeah, it is breaking news as we record, and hopefully there's no foul play involved, right? I mean, you don't want that. You don't want any kind of situation like this, of course, but if there's a crime involved in some way, we'll of course be sharing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, moving on to today's episode, Daryn, by complete coincidence, it's
Yes,
the Phil Hartman case. For those who don't know, Phil Hartman was a cast member on SNL back in the
an
90s.
actor. Yes,
Yeah,
and my favorite, Phil Hartman. He was in
character.
Jingle All the Way
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
with
Oh, he
Arnold
was in
Schwarzenegger.
that. I forgot about that. I love that movie.
Thoroughly enjoyed that character. Do you have a favorite Phil Hartman
Like
role? I mean,
character or whatever.
he's been
Yeah,
in so many. I mean, he was it's odd that his life was sort of cut short in this way because he's just
right.
like a hilariously funny guy.
Yeah,
Um, Obviously, when you think back of any old SNL sketches and when they do the best ofs, he's certainly in there in every sort of way.
yeah.
But yeah, do you have a favorite like Phil Hartman role? And for those who don't know him, are you up on his IMDb? So maybe you
I
could
am
just look him up
too.
too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking through and I forgot that he was in this show, and I didn't know him as Phil Hartman at the time, but News Radio was one of those
Hmm.
shows, one of those classic, like maybe not classic sitcoms, but um it was a show that would like come on at a weird hour of the night, like when I would be up late
Yeah.
watching television, and I'd always watch it. So I remember him from that. I'm a huge SNL fan. I've watched SNL since I was in about fourth grade. My mom and I would stay up watching. I remember vividly watching late SNL episodes with Mary Catherine Gallagher, aka Molly Shannon.
Sure.
Like when I was like in elementary school and us just laughing our faces off about that kind of stuff. I
Uh,
don't really remember anything from Phil Hartman on SNL, like me watching it, but I'm sure he was a huge part
do
of
you
it. I
remember that
just
movie? So I Married an Axe Murderer.
I know of it, but I don't think I've ever seen it
with Mike
actually.
Myers.
No. Is he
Oh
in
my
that with him?
God.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in that,
Okay.
and a great
There you
movie.
go.
I think
You
that
know,
was like in
actually,
the 90s, but it was awesome. It was very funny. Very
actually, Jingle All the Way is probably the one I know him the most from, but I just kind of forgot
great
that he was in
movie.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
great
Jingle All
movie.
the Way. The scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger's character like blasts through an apartment building and like the family's like, "What the?" and you just like
Yeah,
see like I will never forget. I remember being in the movie theater
I
and
love that movie.
crying watching this movie. Yeah. Anyway,
It's so good.
let's kick off this
Um,
episode. Unfortunately,
yes.
very tragic, but we wanted to kind of remember him in a more positive light right off the top of the show. So,
Yeah. So Phil Hartman was born on September 24th, 1948 in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. And it was the fourth out of eight children. So smack dab in the middle. And at 10 years old, his family relocated to the United States. From a young age, he found attention difficult to obtain, stating, I mean, I imagine as a middle child, like four out of fucking eight children, like, yeah, that's got to be hard.
well, let me say my sister is the middle child and she complains about this all the time. She was always the one, kind of like acting a little goofier, wanting the little, so I'm very familiar with, I'm the oldest, my sister's the middle, my brother's the youngest. And so my mom had the oldest.
You
She
have
had
the
her
middle child,
baby.
right? You
Yeah,
have like your middle child syndrome. You have your first and your baby, and everyone else is
it's a
like, eh.
thing. Yeah, it's a
It's
thing.
definitely a
Yep.
thing. So from a young age, as I said, he found attention difficult to obtain. He stated in an interview, quote, I suppose I didn't get what I wanted out of my family life, so I started seeking love and attention elsewhere. And to
Yeah.
combat this, as a lot of people do, he chose to be a class clown and make people laugh. And it usually they always say like comedians kind of start from this like darker place that they try to
Yeah.
turn into something funny. So this sort of does make sense. After
Hmm.
graduating high school, he studied art at Santa Monica City College, dropping out in 1969 to become a roadie with a rock band, which is
Okay.
just so
It
1969
so is. You're
in
right. The
LA.
summer of
Like,
69, as they say.
totally. And he did return to school, however, 3 years later, where he studied graphic arts and he became really passionate about it. He developed and operated his own graphic art business, creating album and logo art for over 40 bands, including Poco in America and my favorite, Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
That's pretty impressive. I wonder which exact logo or art that was. I'm gonna have to look that up
I know,
later.
I'm going to have to look that up too. I had no idea about that. He was working alone as a graphic artist. He frequently amused himself with quote flights of voice fantasies, so just doing funny voices. And sort of Robin Williams did this too. You can just go off and riff and you become like this own world unto yourself if you're really good at this. And
Yeah.
Phil certainly was. In 1975, Phil decided he wanted to find a more social art form and began attending evening improv comedy workshops with a group called the Groundlings, which is
Hmm.
very famous. A lot of
Even
famous
now.
alum
Yeah.
have come out of the Groundlings. Sherry O'Terry has come out of the
That's
Groundlings.
right. One of my absolute favorites from SNL.
While watching one of their performances, he impulsively decided to climb on stage and join the cast. The group was impressed with his character impressions and knack for quick witted improv. Just one of those moments that you just seize that changes your life and you don't know it at the time. I
Yeah.
love I
Yeah.
love these stories. But it was at the Groundlings, Phil met and befriended Paul Rubens, who, as we all know, is one of my favorite
Your
shows.
faves. Yep.
Together, the pair created Pee Wee's Playhouse, one of the best shows
Oh,
of
I
all
didn't know
time,
that.
where they portrayed the legendary characters Pee Wee Herman and Captain Carl. And Phil Hartman, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him in Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Right.
He was the Captain Carl. What a great show. It is truly one of the best shows I think I've ever seen of all time. I've always wanted to recreate something like that. You can't really create Pee Wee in the same way without Paul Rubens,
Right.
but RIP to both of those guys. But what
Yeah.
an ingenious show at a time. That was like the first show to me that was for adults and kids.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
both. My parents could watch it, we could watch it. I loved it
Yeah.
so much. And
Right.
Phil actually stayed with Pee Wee's Playhouse for 5 seasons, excuse me, before moving on to pursue, other little roles. One also known as Saturday Night Live. Pretty
That's
big,
right.
huge gig.
Yeah, that's right. Well, during his time with SNL, Phil became known for his impressions and performed as over 70 different characters. Let me also say, I didn't mention this at the top of the show, you guys. You might have heard it on another episode. I'm very sick today. I just want you to know I'm pushing through, I'm rallying through I have the worst sinus congestion I think I've ever had. It's not COVID, or at least I don't think it is right
It's just
now.
like temperature, weather, seasonal
It
changes
is,
type
it's
thing.
crazy. So
And
if
John
I,
being around gross college kids all the time.
Honestly, yes, it is that. So
Honestly, yes.
apologies for that as I get through today's episode.
Good.
Hopefully you'll
Should be.
forgive
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So some of his most famous original characters include Eugene, the anal retentive chef, which is Megan's personal favorite. She wanted us to share,
Yes.
and Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer, which I
That's
vaguely
great. I
remember.
love
Yeah,
that one. And he
I
looks
might have
just like it. It's
I might have to
great.
look
Great
these up
sketch.
on YouTube afterwards. And of course, Phil impersonated an impressive array of celebrities like Frank Sinatra, Ronald Reagan, Barbara Bush, Charlton Heston, excuse me, Kelsey Grammer, Michael Caine, Phil Donahue. I do remember those sketches a
Yes.
lot. Barry Humphries, Kirk Douglas, just to name a few there. However, his most famous impression was, of course, the one of Bill Clinton,
Sure.
which led him to meeting Bill Clinton in 1993, President Clinton at that point. During his time at SNL, he was nicknamed the Glue due to his caring nature on set and his impressive skill set that came in handy during
Mhm.
airtime.
I gotta
Um,
say, sorry to interrupt. I just gotta
no, go
say,
ahead.
when I watch these, 90s sketches of him, he just seems like the warmest
I
human.
know.
Just
I
the
know.
warmest, kindest guy.
This nickname the Glue because of his caring nature and impressive skill set and stuff. I feel like we hear a lot about that with Keenan Thompson now. He's been on the
Mm.
show for so long and
Longest reigning cast member ever.
yeah, and so many cast members when you hear them do interviews. Like I hear a lot of them on Howard Stern specifically. They'll often refer to Keenan as that person now, so he seems like a very lovable person. Quick little side note I want to share. Well, should
Yeah.
I share
Oh.
this?
Oh.
Let's just say when I used to work at 30 Rock, I'm sure you saw them all the time, Daryn. Tons of cast members constantly around 30 Rock. And let's just say a handful of cast members I would often see outside of my window smoking what? Was it a cigarette? Was it a
We don't
vape? I
know.
don't know. No one knows for sure what it is. But I just want to mention that I would see Keenan out there, on Thursday dress rehearsals, whatever. And yeah, that's my connection to SNL.
I
Anyway,
love that. Well,
so uninteresting, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, Lorne Michaels, who of course has been the head of SNL since its inception, pretty much, held Phil in a high regard himself, actually, stating, quote, Phil Hartman, I think, is the least appreciated except here. That kind of ability to do 5 or 6 parts in a show where you're playing support or you're doing remarkable character work is different than doing the samurai all the time or well-known
mm,
or more popular characters, end quote. And Lauren is right. I mean, that's the it sounds like Phil is sort of the backbone of SNL in a lot of ways.
absolutely.
So it was during this time that Phil actually won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing for a Variety Music or Comedy Program for SNL in 1989, sharing the award with the other show's writers.
Always impressive to be an actor and a writer on that show.
Oh,
You
for
really
sure.
get comedy if you can do that.
Yeah, for sure. He was a trailblazer in that way too. By 1993, he was ready to leave Saturday Night Live. Most of the colleagues he'd started with have started trickled off, and he felt his comic style was beginning to clash with the new wave of cast members. This is a normal kind of natural thing that happens over time. There's a joke that everyone thinks the last generation of SNL was the best generation that ever
Sure.
happened. I think that was sort of what's happening here. Also, another thing is there's a rumor, or maybe even more confirmed rumor, that most people get a 7-year contract at SNL. So maybe he had kind of reached the end of the contract and wasn't really looking to just
Kind of
stay
when
there
every
forever.
generation kind of changes, humors begin to
Yeah,
shift,
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, except for Keenan, who's been there, I think, since
of course.
2003,
He's been
which is
there a long
amazing.
time.
Yeah. So the cast turnover led to his departure in 1994, excuse me. He continued working on various shows, such as voicing Troy McClure in The Simpsons, and as I mentioned, news anchor Bill McNeil on the NBC sitcom News Radio after being attached to the show's ensemble cast structure. However, while his career was strong at the time, basically, the most ideal
It's at the
scenario for it,
peak. Yeah.
yeah, for the most ideal scenario is to end your time at SNL and immediately pick up a sitcom or some kind of TV show, and that's what he did. So everything was going really well in his career, but his romantic life was struggling, as you may have heard.
Yes. So, obviously, we never know what's happening behind closed doors. But in 1986, the same year he debuted on SNL, okay, so he left in 94, started in 86. He was set up on a blind date with a model, Brynn Hartman. And the couple married after a year, but while Phil's career continued to grow, Brynn's kind of plateaued. I mean, men and women kind of inverse with that sometimes, and also
Right.
being a model. Unfortunately, I'm sure
Right.
even back then, okay. And Brynn just kind of seemed to be jealous and resentful of his career. She'd often ask Phil to help her land auditions and gigs. Though he claimed he didn't see a promising future in acting for her, her husband still found her auditions and small gigs when he could, because he's a sweet, supportive
Yeah,
guy.
he's trying to be supportive. Yeah.
And this is he's on his rise. He's on his meteoric rise. During the height of Phil's SNL career, he and Brynn welcomed two children into the world, Sean and Bergen Hartman. Bergen's kind of a cool name.
That's a cool name.
Uh,
I like that. Yeah.
as Phil was reaching commercial success, Brynn was left to take on more of the parental responsibilities. And the couple unfortunately began fighting constantly. This sort of
Yeah.
the old trope. I don't think she knew what she was signed up for, but obviously, like, his career was, she doesn't want to dim his light, even though she's
Right.
trying to here. And so there's a lot of internal conflict there. Now, Joe Rogan, Phil's news radio co star of 4 years,
Which I
reflected to the
completely forgot about. Sorry to interrupt you.
completely, no, completely. I mean, it is kind of crazy because I just think of Joe Rogan as like starting on Fear Factor.
Me too. I always think Fear
I don't really
Factor.
think
Yeah.
about it, but it doesn't, like, obviously he had a full career before that. It's just that
Completely.
in
Yeah.
my child mind, it was Fear Factor. Now, so Joe
Right.
Rogan reflected to the Boston Herald, quote, he said he tried unsuccessfully 5 times to persuade his buddy Phil Hartman to get rid of his
Mm,
crazed wife Brynn, but that Hartman loved his kids and didn't want to leave.
I hate
Sweet.
that.
Rogan said Brynn Hartman was a loser. She definitely had coke problems. She was a weirdo. She was a loser. That's what she was. She was a loser and she was married to a winner. She was an actress and she was a failure. And he was an actor and he was a big success. And you know how that can be. End quote.
Yeah. Just to be clear, that was a
Not
quote,
nice
not
words.
not
Yeah, no.
Darren's thought.
Yes, no, that was a quote from Rogan. Not
Yeah.
great. Not a winning resume.
No, and you would assume that Joe and Phil were very close, even beyond working. When you're working that close with someone for 4 years and kind of both in the same kind of age bracket slash time frame in that world, you kind of want to put some worth to what Joe Rogan is saying here, which is not
Yeah.
something you say very often about Joe Rogan, unfortunately.
Well, in December of 1997, Phil and Brynn attended a Christmas party with some of Phil's colleagues, including Andy Dick, who worked with Phil and Joe
Yeah,
Rogan on News Radio. Wow, what a
I know.
cast of
I
like
know.
90s studs in terms
Yeah.
of the not studs in terms of like just like celeb studs, like these guys that are in
Yeah.
the mix, you know?
Stars. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andy Dick was a recovering cocaine addict, sponsored by Chris Farley. Bryn Hartman was also a recovering addict, 10 years sober at this point. And around the time of this party, either a few days before or after, the timeline's a little bit unclear. Chris
Yeah.
Farley unfortunately relapsed and passed away.
Oh, that was also tragic. Yes.
And just remember, this will be relevant later in the story, but also,
Yeah.
Chris Farley, one of the greats,
Yeah, for
top
sure.
three guys on SNL, I think, of all time. Tommy Boy was one of my favorite movies of all time. Just an incredible, what prop, not prop comic, a credible like movement comic. He used his whole body for all of that, and just what a terrible tragedy that was.
Yeah, it was. And those happened pretty back to back, as we'll get to here in a second. So, after the party, the couple continued to grow apart, and Phil spent more time at work or away from his family, despite how much he loved his children. On Wednesday, May 27th, 1998, Phil and Bryn's children were being watched by their sitter when their parents were out for the evening. This is super weird, but I'm just going to share this with everybody. I remember looking at my watch and remembering this. I had my first kiss on May 28th, 1998. Yes, it was a girl. I know that was the first thing a lot of you
Four
were
days after
thinking.
my 10th birthday. Just
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
put those
right.
thoughts in there.
Yeah, my first kiss, May 28th, 1998. Just sharing
So,
that. Yeah, just saying.
just saying.
You were 10 in the 1998?
Yeah. I was born in
Yeah,
88.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, that's how math works.
So I was 11?
No, you
No,
were
I was
12.
12. I was 12.
Oh, Lord.
That's weird. Yeah, I guess I was 12. Okay, anyway, just sharing that here. Um, Phil returned home. Phil returned home first, excuse me, while Bryn stayed out with friends at Buca di Beppo, a very popular
Buca di
restaurant
Beppo. Yep.
in New York. Bryn had been using cocaine that evening, which she had mixed with alcohol and Zoloft. Yikes. Sounds like a recipe for a disaster.
Yeah.
Her friend said that excuse me, her friend said there was no odd behavior from Brynn to imply what was to come next. In the early morning hours of Thursday, May 28th, 1998, Brynn returned home and got into an argument with Phil.
So she had
After
been
the
out all night, by the
Yeah,
way,
she had
just
been
to say
out. Yeah.
that, like, cocaine abuse, uh, her mindset was
Prescription
obviously like,
drugs, yeah.
exactly, alcohol. Yeah.
And alcohol as well, right? So after the fight ended, Phil went into his bedroom to sleep, and sometime before 3 a.m., Brynn entered her husband's bedroom with a 38 caliber Smith& Wesson Model 15 revolver, and she fired several fatal shots at Phil. Once between his eyes, once in
Oh,
the throat, and once in the upper chest.
I mean, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
that's point
heartless.
blank. That's
That's
heartless, yeah.
heartless.
Bryn then drove to the home of her friend Ron Douglas and confessed to the killing, but he did not initially believe her. I mean, yeah, you might think that she, was probably out all night. At this point, if she drove home to her friends, it's probably 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Like, what are you talking about, right? I would
Yeah.
probably maybe think the same thing if I was her friend. Well, Bryn insisted that the two drive back to her home, but they each took separate cars.
And on the drive over, Bryn called another friend and confessed to killing Phil a second time. So she's obviously coming to, or
Yeah,
recognizes maybe that she'd done this horrible thing.
yeah,
When Bryn, it's hard to say what her mindset was. When Bryn and Ron arrived at her home just after 6 a.m., when Bryn brought her friend to show him Phil's body in the bedroom, Ron immediately called 911. Police
yeah.
arrived and escorted Douglas and the Hartmans' two children from the premises, by which time Bryn had locked herself in the bedroom. Bryn called her sister to make arrangements for her two children,
It's
and shortly
crazy.
afterward she shot and killed herself with a
Yeah.
38 caliber revolver.
Yeah, really tough.
Begs the question, why couldn't she have just done this and sort of left the kids with a fucking family member? But I
Right.
digress. The police stated Phil's untimely death was caused by domestic discord, which almost seems like too light a version for what this was
Yeah, for real.
between the couple. Phil was, I wonder why it's not domestic violence, except if this was maybe the only, outside of emotional abuse, like the only violent tactic, but I
Yeah,
can't
maybe it
even,
wasn't even maybe there was no
maybe
you're
she didn't
saying the
hit
actual
him
crime.
before.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
was there
like
anything happening before that?
domestic discord sounds like, up, he threw her out of the house again, and the
Listen,
clothes are out the window, but shooting someone point blank between the fucking eyes and then killing yourself feels a lot worse than discord to me. But
and again, I agree with you. And again, we've been talking a lot about this lately, but the justice system in the 90s was struggling, okay? Let's just put it that
yeah,
way.
a lot of stuff going on in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, Phil was 49 at the time. I can't believe I was 10 when this happened. Phil was 49
Yeah,
at the time of his death. Bryn was only 40. Tragedy all around. And the loss
right.
devastated the comic and television communities, as you can imagine. Phil was killed between seasons 4 and 5 of News Radio, after which time the show chose to bring on John Lovitz to fill
That's
the
right.
role for the fifth and final season of the show. Love John Lovitz. John Lovitz got to work with Andy Dick and Joe Rogan and the rest of the News Radio team to conclude the show.
Yeah. I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, should we have recasted the position, that part? I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, maybe that's not the right thing to do. Because, not to make any kind of comparison here, but the actor Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther in the Marvel
Yeah,
movies,
passed away from
tragically
cancer
passed away of cancer. Yeah. And,
a few
a
years
lot of
ago.
people were worried they were going to recast that character, and I think they did the right thing by not recasting him. Instead, well, I won't give any spoilers, but because you can watch the sequel and find out what they're going to do next with that character. But I don't
At
know.
least
How do
with
you
this
feel in
John,
general about that?
well, at least with this John, I don't, it doesn't say here really, but John was also on SNL. So
Hmm.
there is a little bit of flavor, like in the family,
Yeah, that's
they
true. Yeah,
together, like I do agree in sort of honoring maybe that position. It's
right.
hard maybe in a movie like that with Chadwick, but I don't really have strong or negative. I don't have any
Yeah,
feelings. I guess it would just be if it's good, and John
yeah.
Lovitz is great. So,
And I'll say one other maybe better comparison before I move on here is, I was a huge Glee fan,
mm,
and when the character of Finn, played by, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, who played Finn,
Corey
Cor Corey, yes,
Monteith.
Monteith. How am I forgetting that? And you're remembering? Oh my
I don't know. I
goodness.
never watched Glee.
I know that's insane. You're so good at
That's why I
I
said it really hesitantly. You really like
I was like, yes, keep
Monteith?
going. Yes, yes. I don't know why I just so blanked on that.
Am I right about that? Corey
Yeah, Corey
Monteith? Yeah.
Monteith. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He passed away during the show season and he was dating Leah Michelle
Right.
during the time. And I think people were having the same conversation. Should we recast him? Obviously, what happened on that show is they mourned his death as a character as well. So yeah, it's a touchy thing, and it's unfortunately something that, every production has to think about in Hollywood. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
all right, well, according to John, his relationship with Andy
Lovitz,
Dick
that is.
was yes,
Yeah.
exactly, not me, thank you. His relationship with Andy Dick was tumultuous while on set. Andy Dick has a little bit of a reputation for this that's public
Yes.
and well documented. While filming one of the final episodes, Andy commented to John, quote, "You shouldn't be here." To which John responded, "Well, I wouldn't be here if you hadn't given Brynn Coke in the first place," end quote.
Oh.
So that's really a heated and unfortunate exchange between the two of them. Um, John believes that at that Christmas party shortly before Phil's murder, Andy Dick was in possession of cocaine, which he used and shared with Brynn, who broke her sobriety for the first time in a decade.
Wow.
He believed that Brynn's relapse was the direct cause of Phil's murder. This is a touchy
It's
subject because
allegedly, yeah, this
yeah,
is
it's
just
all
what people's
alleged.
emotions feel like this. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
because
However,
while
yeah,
Andy might have done this, it's not like he pulled the trigger. It might have
that
been
was my point.
irresponsible, but,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah. However, John claims that after the show wrapped, he and Andy made up and everything was fine for years. So, okay. I mean, that's a quite an accusation to
it's a
make, but
little bit of the Natalie Woods thing, with Christopher
yeah,
Walken and all these
yeah.
things. And, just,
Another SNL situation as well. Also, I'll just say this, let's not forget these people are dealing with like their friend dying. I mean, emotions
right.
are high, accusations are probably happening. You do have to give a
Drugs.
little bit, yeah, you have to give a little bit of like, leeway in terms of the way people are reacting and
Yeah.
speaking about stuff at this point.
Well, several years later, John Lovitz was hanging out at a restaurant he co-owned when Andy Dick came in with a friend and began drinking. Now, during the evening, Andy came up to John's table, drank his drink, and said, "I put the Phil Hartman hex on you. You're the next one to die," which
Wow.
doesn't feel funny to me.
No, of course not.
Now, John had
Fuck.
Andy removed from the restaurant and banned his former co star from the venue. Several years later, Andy attended one of John's performances at the Laugh Factory. And when the show was over, Andy approached John in the lobby. Man, Andy is like taunting John with this
Just
shit
all over the
now.
place, right? Yeah.
John was, I think, rightly so, expecting an apology from the incident in the restaurant. However, Andy took the opportunity just to continue to taunt him. According
Right.
to John, Andy made more remarks about the idea that he had killed Phil Hartman. Not sure how John would be responsible for that. I think this guy is obviously projecting
Right.
his own guilt of what went down. John Lovitz grabbed Andy by the shirt and smashed his head into the bar, later stating, I would have kept going, but the doorman broke it up." Since this
Wow.
incident, Andy Dick has been found guilty of sexually assaulting an Uber driver and has been arrested on numerous times for drugs, public intoxication, and failing to register as a sex offender.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like because of some of the accusations here, I just want to give our sources for this week's research. I think it's an important part.
Yeah.
It plays an important part. Megan source CBS News, an archive site for highbeam.com, people.com, CNN.com, and actually several other articles from CBS News. So just for the awareness, we're going to put that in the show notes as well, because there's a lot of he said, she said, but it's all
Yeah.
being reported. It's not stuff that we're just coming up with. I just want to make sure that's here. And it's not stuff we're reading off of Wikipedia, which other podcasts out there tend to do. We're not going to name names. But yeah, it's a really tragic case. Especially just doing this episode about an hour after finding out about another celebrity death that's going to shock the culture. Just very weird timing on that for a million
Yeah.
reasons, but yeah, really tragic, and we hope that the children have, been able to find peace, for lack of a better word.
I mean, just, you know, addiction and all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot to obviously play into it. Obviously, her jealousy of her husband certainly played into it. They had a very tumultuous relationship, but just a short life, but an incredible one in terms of his impact on so many people. I mean, again, I watched Jingle All the Way when I was like
I
6
know.
and
I'm gonna
remember it
watch
or
that this holiday
whatever.
season now that you said
5 when
that.
I don't even remember what year it came out. 96 maybe.
That sounds about right.
So I
Yeah.
was like 8, I mean, and that still had a fucking impact on me and can remember it, but just
Yeah, 96. Good job
96
on that.
just
Yeah.
super sad of
Very sad. By
Philip
the way,
dying.
have you I'm so sorry to keep
No.
interrupting you. I keep thinking you're pausing, but do you there's a new SNL movie out called Saturday Night. Are you have any interest in seeing that or watching it?
Yes and no. I kind of
Yeah.
had this thing where I'm not overly interested in watching fictional characters play real ones.
Yeah, I feel
Like
you.
as if
I
it's like
feel
a
you on that.
doc, like as a doc, like I don't mind like a series where someone's playing, like Pablo
Yeah.
Escobar or
Sure.
Sofia Vergara's playing Griselda or stuff like that. I don't mind that so much, but just like it's kind of
Hmm.
supposed to be a doc, but it's scripted. I like don't know. It's
Yeah,
like the
it's
Ryan
odd.
Murphy stuff. It's like I just don't. I'd rather see the doc, you
I,
know.
I completely
But
100%
I'm not
agree.
not interested. I'm not
Okay.
rushing out to see it. So,
All right,
are you
makes
gonna see it?
sense. No, I'm not. Like like you,
Pass.
I love SNL. I don't need to watch a movie like about that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you know me. If it's not Marvel or something I'm already interested in right
Is
away,
it? Does it really exist?
does it really exist? Daryn, before we get to listener shout outs, I have a surprise for you.
Uh,
And the reason it's a surprise is because I forgot to do it at the top of the show.
oh,
And I was still going to surprise you. I just forgot. So,
oh, that's nice.
so
That's
the
a birthday
surprise
gift.
is, and this is a surprise for everyone on Patreon as well as YouTube. If you're watching our episode, which you can watch on Patreon early or on YouTube the Sunday or Monday after the episode drops on our
Correct.
podcast feed, it's a visual update, and I'm excited to share with you, Daryn, in our chat here, and I hope you can download it and put it up, your new virtual background that I made for you for the
Yay!
Halloween season. So I've just shared it.
Ooh.
We want to have your reaction. Maybe don't look too close until you put it up, okay? Download it. Don't look too close.
Save as. Hold
Yeah,
on.
save as. I'm going to do the same. I've
Alice.
updated mine as well. I'm going to let you do yours first,
Should I
though,
switch
because,
it now?
yeah, do it now for the listeners and viewers watching on YouTube and Patreon. Um, this is by the way, if you haven't yet, please go follow us and subscribe on YouTube. We would love your patronage on Patreon as well. You can sign up for as little as $5 a month. And here it is. Do you love
Ooh.
it? Can I
I
walk you through everything? Okay, let me walk you through from go ahead. What's your reaction
I just like
first?
the okay, like the Pez, great reaction. Like
Great.
the deer head, I love. The candy corn, great.
Yeah.
You as
As the Scarlet
WandaVision
Witch. Yeah.
or
Me as
whatever
WandaVision. Yeah.
whatever that is
Yeah. Well, that's from our live
that's the
stream a couple
picture. I
years
no,
ago.
I
Okay.
please, I've dreamt about this every night,
for
of course.
those of you who are not able to
Love
watch at
this.
home, good. I hope you like it. We updated our virtual. We're in a virtual room, a studio, if you will. By
Yes.
complete chance, they look exactly the same. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Completely separate thoughts. They
yeah,
happen to be the same color background. I
exactly.
told John that my favorite Halloween candy was, which we'll get to on NMR, was candy corn, which don't save your reaction for NMR
Yeah.
because we promised to people,
Okay.
but Practical Magic and Carrie were like, like he asked me
Yeah.
what my favorite Halloween and scary movie was. So scary was The Shining or Carrie,
Right.
and then Halloween movie was Practical Magic. And then I was like, we're gonna have the age-old debate next week of is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or
Yes,
a
we need to
Christmas
figure
movie?
that
So we'll have
out.
that age-old debate. John,
Yeah.
this is amazing. And
Okay.
all the
Let me.
Pez are like actual Pez.
I know. Let me get to this. So here's what I did. I took our normal room and I got rid of everything in the room by using AI, by the
I don't
way.
like the spider though.
I know we're gonna get to it. So
No?
for this is for all the listeners who are listening and aren't watching, which you should just go watch the YouTube video. But in the background to Daryn's left, if you're being kind of in real life, I guess you could say, is the Practical Magic poster for a movie from when? 1997, maybe 98?
I'm gonna
Look it up.
IMDb it as you are. Yeah.
A bowl of disgusting candy corn. More on that in another episode.
No.
I kept the cat butt tissue holder because I feel like that's your
Because
iconic
it's
thing.
our
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's our thing.
Next to that,
98 was Practical
98, I was
Magic.
right. There you go.
Mhm.
Next to that is a gigantic hairy tarantula, which I thought would really make her
Set
feel
on that.
unsettled.
Yeah,
On
I
the
feel
other side of the
unsettled.
room is a bucket full of Butterfingers candies because that's Darren's favorite candy.
That's what that is, because I couldn't
Yeah, you
tell. That
couldn't
is an
tell.
underrated Halloween candy,
Yeah.
people.
And I agree with you on that. I think Butterfingers are really good.
They're good.
Next to that is a jack-o'-lantern, which I had AI create that says, and I think the prompt was make a carved pumpkin that says Hollywood.
Well, it does.
I don't know what else is on there. I think, listen, we're in the early stages of AI. Just accept what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Above Darren, for those of you who are watching, are the three same pictures of her and Nadine, her and
I'm
Andy, and
surprised you didn't
me.
draw like fangs on Eva on any
Oh,
of the
that would have been
pictures,
fun.
you know,
Yeah.
or like, but there's blood coming down from
Yeah,
the
there's blood
frames.
trickling because her house is bleeding. Then
Right,
there's like,
obviously.
pumpkin lights strung
Decorations.
above. To Darren's right is a framed, gorgeous photo of me as the Scarlet
Gorgeous.
Witch holding Bailey's that I think a listener sent to me. Thank you, listener.
Gorgeous model photo.
Um, that photo is from our live stream for Patreon, actually, from
I
several
love
years,
this.
couple years ago. And then there's a shelf with little bats and cobwebs, and on it are 6 different Halloween Pez dispensers because Darren loves Pez.
I have all those.
And just a quick little thing, there is a taxidermied reindeer above that. Okay,
Uh,
let's move on.
let's see yours. The spider
Okay.
just chilling on the floor.
Yeah, it's
Like
crawling over to you.
right, like as it's just like a little statement is like freaking me the fuck out.
It's coming over. It wants to be friends with you.
It does. And
Wait,
I'm
how
gonna
do I do
say,
this? I
no
don't even
thanks, sir. Look at
know.
this, John.
Yeah.
No
Yeah, you're like pushing it
thanks.
away. Yeah. How do I upload though? Oh, here we go.
Sweetie, you hit upload, you hit plus.
Oh, the plus sign. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
Add image.
I know
I'm like,
exactly what you're doing.
how do I do the internet? Okay, here's mine. Mine's not as interesting. I'll be honest. I spent a lot more time on yours because it was more fun,
I
but here's
love this
mine.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, remember this pumpkin from last time?
I was gonna say it's
Okay,
the same
I knew you
jack-o'-lantern.
were gonna have a hocus pocus.
Yep,
Okay,
Hocus Pocus is mine.
hocus pocus. He also has the pumpkin decorations.
Yep.
He has his little moo dang witch cat that's known as Mudang,
That's
also
Magic
known
with
as,
a Witch Hat, which is
and
worth the
he
if you haven't subscribed yet, you need to just go look at this cute little photo of him.
it's worth the like little slutty pose that he's making in the
I
witch hat.
know.
Like he's
I
such a
know.
slutty
He
witch.
is a
What is
slut.
next to him? I can't really
I'm glad
see.
you're asking. That is a Bath and Body Works vampire blood candle
Oh,
because I love
Lord,
it so
save me.
much. Yep,
Save
right
me.
there. Yep.
All right, move to
Yeah,
your
I'm trying to move
right.
here.
Okay, there we go. Then we have a bucket of Beanie Baby
Yeah, just
candies.
general candy. Yeah, nothing
Okay,
crazy.
general candy. And then we have a Funko Pop of the Scarlet Witch, of which
Thank you.
I have the framed photo of John being the
Exactly.
Scarlet Witch. I see no
Exactly.
spider on the floor there.
No,
I
I
see no
got
swarm of spiders coming to attack you.
no, I create the world around me much like the Scarlet Witch. So for me, I didn't have to have that because I don't want it. But there is, by the
I
way,
love that my house is bleeding, but yours is
yeah,
fine.
I will say I finished mine first and then I saw this feature and I was like, yeah, Darren's house is definitely going to have to bleed for sure. Anyway, I hope you like your background, guys. If
I
you're
love it.
listening,
Thanks,
go and
John.
check it out. You're so welcome. Let's get to some listener shout outs as we wrap up this episode.
Yes.
Um, Darren, Sandy on Patreon actually has a question for you after an episode that we recently recorded saying, Darren, this is Sandy. I think I said that on Patreon.
Hmm.
Darren, I have been waiting to binge watch Dawson's Creek. It
Yes.
was the show of my high school years. I was
Ah,
15 years old when it started, and they were 15 on the show. I was in love with Joshua Jackson and Katie Holmes.
get
Darren,
it,
you had
Sandy.
mentioned Katie Holmes on a recent episode of NMR. So, are you watching Dr. Odyssey? 2 episodes so far, but JJ has had a glow up. He's so great.
I love Joshua Jackson. I really do. I loved him in The Affair. I love him in almost everything that he does. I'm not watching Dr. Odyssey. I tend not to watch like scripted primetime
Yeah,
network
you don't really
shows.
watch that. Yeah, that's true.
There are very few. The scripted, what I would call primetime shows, are not on broadcast. They're usually either on cable or they're on like a premium network. But
Right.
I've heard good things, and like I've obviously seen
Okay.
the advertisements. I watched Survivor, so I've seen all the commercials
Right.
for it or whatever. But yeah, Joshua Jackson can get it, as can
He's
Katie Holmes.
beautiful.
And I just
Yeah,
remember
Katie's
watching this.
beautiful.
I'm going to say a little bit younger. So I was like 10, 11 when it
Yeah.
came out. So it was
Yeah.
just before high school, about 3 years out. So they weren't too far off from my age. They were sort of like what
Yeah.
you want to watch to like aspire to be. Although, Sandy, as I'm sure you know and I know, they were not talking like 15-year-olds. They were talking like 38-year-olds.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
so it was very, what's the word?
You
It's
were
very
like trying to, yeah,
precocious. It's very
exactly.
precocious.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Sandy. And I am getting through it. I'm just about to start season 3 again. Now,
There you
Lord
go.
Des posted in our Facebook group saying, catching up and just heard John call vampire blood from Bath and Body Works a flavor. There it is in his studio. I've been calling candle spray scents flavors forever, and everyone makes fun of me. I stand with you. Get that yummy Halloween flavor. I stand with you,
Yes.
John.
I love this. Thank you
Lord
so
Des,
much, Lar.
I don't know how you think about this.
I responded on Facebook and I was like, finally, I'm with my people that understand that candles can be flavors.
Oh, I mean,
Listen, it's not,
I do say that. Sometimes I'll be like, "Can you turn that candle off?" As opposed to being like, "Blow it out."
that's why, that is not normal,
I'm
by the
like,
way.
"Turn that candle off."
What are you, a robot? What is this? AI? Are you the Tesla robot? Like, what is going on here? Yeah,
Yes,
Darren's doing the thing.
yes, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Subscribe on Patreon, subscribe on YouTube,
Please,
of course. And as you can hear in my voice this week, although I think I'm doing a pretty good job, actually, take
yeah, I
your
can tell.
Zyrtec. Take your Zyrtec, or if you're me, like I did this morning, take your Mucinex.
Well, I'm gonna sign off with saying, "Get yourself what John has, which is your own mood dang."
That's right. There he is.
Yeah, there he
Oh,
is. His little mood
I should put
dangish.
Moodang in the back now, right? Of
He's
my
got a little mood
thing.
dangling.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
This just got
okay.
weird. All right. See you guys next time. Bye
Bye.
bye.